Jake walked into Captain Yang's office and immediately knew he was in trouble. Two people in Earth Command uniforms sat across from Yang's desk, their faces stern and official. One was an older woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. The other was a younger man with the look of someone who had never smiled in his life. "Jake, please sit down," Captain Yang said. "This is Commander Sarah Wells from Earth Command and Lieutenant David Price. They have some questions about your recent activities." Jake sat down, feeling his heart rate increase. Through the bond, he sensed Zarv's immediate concern as his stress reached her. He tried to send back reassurance, but he wasn't sure how reassured he actually felt. "Mr. Morrison, Commander," Wells said, "we understand you recently underwent some kind of alien bonding ceremony. Is this correct?" "Yes," Jake said. There was no point in lying. "Were you given permission by Earth Command to participate in this ceremony?" "I wasn't aware. I needed permission for my personal relationships." Lieutenant Price leaned forward. "This isn't just a personal relationship. Mr. Morrison, you're a diplomatic representative of Earth. Your actions reflect on all of humanity. And what exactly is wrong with my actions?" Commander Wells opened the file on her tablet. "You've permanently altered your brain chemistry through alien influence. You've legally bound yourself to an alien citizen. You've assumed responsibility for 3 hybrid children with no proper documentation. Do I need to continue?" Jake felt his anger rising, which immediately transmitted to Zareth. She sent back a wave of calm strength, reminding him to stay controlled. "I helped a family in need. That's what diplomats are supposed to do. Helping and bonding are 2 different things," Lieutenant Price said. "There are concerns that you may have been influenced by alien pheromones or mental manipulation." "That's ridiculous," Jake said. "I made my decision freely." "Did you?" Commander Wells asked. "Because from our understanding, Catalian bonding ceremonies involve biological alterations that can affect human judgment and decision-making." Jake stood up. "Are you accusing me of being mentally compromised?" "We're investigating the possibility," Wells said calmly, "which is why you're going to submit to a full psychological evaluation and brain scan. And if I refuse, then you'll be relieved of duty pending a formal investigation." Jake felt the bottom drop out of his stomach. Losing his job would mean losing his visa to stay on New Geneva. Without his diplomatic status, he and his family could be separated and deported to different worlds. "How long do I have to decide?" Jake asked. 24 hours, Commander Wells said. "Report to Dr. Chun at the medical facility tomorrow morning at 0800 hours, or clean out your desk." Jake left the meeting feeling like he had been punched in the stomach. As he walked back to his apartment, he tried to process what had just happened. Through the bond, Zareth was already sensing his distress and sending waves of concern. When he entered the apartment, she was waiting for him. What happened? Jake told her everything. As he spoke, he watched the hope drain from her face. "They want to prove that the bonding ceremony affected my ability to make rational decisions. And if they succeed, they'll probably declare our marriage invalid and separate our family." That evening brought another crisis. Elder Vexon arrived at their door looking grim. "I have bad news," he said. "The Catalian Council has learned about your bonding ceremony. They are not pleased." "Why?" Zareth asked. "The ceremony was performed according to all proper traditions. The Council believes you have violated the purity laws by bonding with a human. They are sending a representative to take the children back to Katalos for evaluation." Jake felt his world crumbling around him. "When?" "Elder Kestar will arrive tomorrow. She has full authority to remove the children if she deems them corrupted by human influence." "Corrupted?" Jake's anger flared. "They're just children." "I know," Vexohan said sadly. "But the Council fears that hybrid children raised by humans will lose their Catalian heritage. They believe it would be better to separate them from human influence entirely." After Vexahan left, Jake and Zareth sat in their small living room, holding each other and trying to figure out what to do. The children were in their bedrooms, supposedly asleep, but Jake could sense their anxiety through the family bond. "We could run," Zareth said quietly. "Take the children and leave New Geneva. Find somewhere else to start over." "Where will we go? And with what money?" "I'm probably going to lose my job tomorrow." There are frontier worlds where no one asks questions. About documentation, Jake considered this. What kind of life would that be for the children? Always hiding? Always looking over our shoulders? They were interrupted by a soft knock on the door. Kira stood there in her pajamas, tears streaming down her face. "I can feel how scared you both are," she said. "What's happening?" Jake and Zareth exchanged glances. They had tried to shield the children from their stress, but Kira's empathic abilities made that impossible. "Come here, sweetheart," Zareth said, pulling Kira onto the couch between them. "Are they going to take us away from you?" Kira asked. "We're going to do everything we can to prevent that," Jake said. "But they might try," Jake sighed. "Yes, they might try." Soon Knox and Tam joined them on the couch. The family sat together in the dark, holding each other and trying to find comfort in their shared bond. "I don't want to go back to Katalos," Knox said. "I don't remember it. And the stories make it sound scary. I want to stay here with you and Mom and Dad," Tam added. "We want that too," Zareth said. But sometimes wanting something isn't enough. The next morning came too quickly. Jake had to report for his psychological evaluation, while Zareth waited at home for Elder Kestar to arrive. They decided the children should go to school as normal, hoping to maintain some sense of routine. The psychological evaluation was humiliating. Dr. Chun, a cold woman who seemed to view Jake as a specimen rather than a person, put him through hours of tests. She scanned his brain, analyzed his blood, and asked endless questions about his decision-making process. "The scans show significant changes to your brain chemistry," she said. "Areas associated with bonding and attachment show unusual activity patterns." "Is that necessarily bad?" Jake asked. "It means you're not the same person you were before the ceremony. The question is whether these changes have compromised your judgment." Meanwhile, at home, Zareth faced her own interrogation. Elder Kestar was everything Vexaham was not: cold, rigid, and disapproving. She examined the apartment with obvious distaste, taking notes on everything from the human furniture to the earth books on the shelves. "These children are being raised in a completely human environment," Kestar said. "They are losing their Catalian identity." "They are learning about both cultures," Zareth replied. Jake encouraged them to embrace their Catalian heritage. "A human cannot teach Catalian values. These children need proper guidance from their own people. These children need love and stability. They have that here." When the children returned from school, Elder Kestar observed them carefully. She spoke to each child in the Catalian language, testing their knowledge of traditional customs and beliefs. Kira struggled with some of the more complex concepts, while Knox seemed confused by questions about Catalian spiritual practices. Only Tam, with his advanced intellect, was able to answer most of Kestar's questions correctly. "As I suspected," Kestar said to Zareth, "the older children are already losing their connection to our ways. They must be re-educated before it's too late." That evening, Jake returned from his evaluation feeling defeated. Dr. Chun had found enough evidence of altered brain chemistry to recommend further investigation. He will be suspended from duty pending additional tests. Elder Kestar announced her decision. The children will return to Katalos with her the following week for proper Catalian upbringing. Zarath could come with them, but Jake would not be permitted to accompany his family as they lay in bed that night. Jake and Zareth held each other tightly. Through their bond, they shared their fear, their anger, and their desperate love for their children. "We can't let this happen," Jake said. "I know, but I don't know how to stop it. There has to be something we can do, some legal option, some appeal process." "Maybe," Zareth said, "but we're running out of time." Jake stared at the ceiling, his mind racing. Somewhere in the legal complexities of interspecies law, there had to be a solution. He just had to find it before his family was torn apart. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new fights, and new attempts to separate them. But tonight, they were still together, still a family, still bonded by something stronger than law or politics. Jake closed his eyes and sent all his love through the bond. To Zarth and the children, whatever happened next, he would not give up without a fight. Jake woke up the next morning feeling like he had been hit by a transport shuttle. The bonding ceremony had left him exhausted, and his body was still adjusting to the new connection with Zareth. He could feel her presence, even though she was in the kitchen making breakfast. Her contentment washed over him like warm sunlight, mixed with a thread of worry about how he was handling the changes. "Good morning," she said when he stumbled into the kitchen. "How are you feeling?" "Like my brain is trying to process two sets of emotions at once," Jake admitted, accepting the cup of coffee she offered him. "Is this normal?" "It takes time to learn how to separate your feelings from mine," Zareth said. "The first few weeks are the hardest." The children were already awake, sitting at the small kitchen table eating breakfast. Jake was struck again by how different they all looked from each other, yet how clearly they belonged together as a family. "Good. Morning, Dad," Kira said, and Jake nearly dropped his coffee. The word hit him with unexpected force. "That's going to take some getting used to," he said. "We've been practicing," Knox said with a grin. "We wanted to make sure we got it right. Over." The next few days, Jake began to understand what Dr. Carter had meant about the bonding being overwhelming. Every emotion Zareth felt seemed amplified in his own mind. When she was sad about Alex's absence, Jake felt the grief as if it were his own. When she was happy watching the children play, her joy flooded through him so strongly that he found himself grinning for no apparent reason. The children presented their own challenges. Jake quickly learned that raising hybrid children was nothing like the parenting books he had read. Kira's empathic abilities meant that she absorbed everyone's emotions around her, often becoming overwhelmed in crowds or during stressful situations. She needs to learn to build mental walls, Zareth explained as they watched Kira cry over a news report about a mining accident. Catalian children usually learn this from their fathers, but Alex never fully understood how her abilities worked. Jake spent hours with Kira, teaching her breathing exercises and visualization techniques he had learned during his diplomatic training. Slowly, she began to gain some control over her empathic senses. Knox's challenge was his strength. He was much stronger than human children his age, and he sometimes forgot to be gentle. Jake found broken toys, cracked cups, and a door handle that had been pulled completely off its hinges. "I didn't mean to," Knox said, near tears after accidentally crushing a model spaceship during playtime. "I just wanted to look at it." "I know," Jake said, kneeling down beside him. "But we need to practice being gentle. Here, let me show you something." Jake taught Knox how to control his grip, using exercises that helped him understand his own strength. They practiced with fragile objects like eggs and soap bubbles. Learning how to touch without breaking Doc Tam was the most intellectually challenging of the three children. His mind worked faster than most adults, and he often asked questions that Jake wasn't prepared to answer. Why do humans and Catalians look so different if we can have children together? Tam asked one evening during dinner. "That's a very good question," Jake said, looking to Zareth for help. "Evolution doesn't always follow the same path," Zareth explained. "But sometimes different paths can still meet and create something new." "Like us," Tam said, satisfied with this answer. The most surprising part of Jake's new life was how quickly he began to care for Zareth. The bonding connection meant that he could feel her emotions, but it also allowed him to understand her in ways that would have taken years to develop naturally. He sensed her strength, her intelligence, and her fierce devotion to her children. He also felt her loneliness, her fear of the future, and her gratitude toward him. One evening, as they sat together after putting the children to bed, Jake felt a wave of sadness from Zareth. "What's wrong?" he asked. "I was thinking about Alex," she said. "I feel guilty sometimes, like I'm betraying his memory by being happy with you." Jake considered this. Through their bond, he could feel the depth of her love for her first husband, but he also sensed something else. "You're not replacing him," Jake said finally. "You're making room for someone new. There's a difference. How can you be so understanding?" "About this?" Zareth asked. "Doesn't it bother you that I love someone else first?" "No," Jake said, and he was surprised to realize he meant it. "Your love for Alex is part of what makes you who you are. It's part of what makes you such a good mother. I wouldn't want you to forget him." Their relationship was built on honesty and necessity, but Jake found that genuine affection was growing between them. They worked well together as parents, supporting each other when the children's unique needs became overwhelming. Zar helped Jake understand Catalian culture and biology, while Jake helped her navigate human bureaucracy and social expectations. The bonding connection also had unexpected benefits. Jake found that he could sense when one of the children was in distress, even when they were in different rooms. Zareth could communicate complex emotions to him without words, which proved invaluable when dealing with difficult parenting situations. But the connection also created new challenges. Jake had to learn to shield his work stress from affecting the family. When he had a difficult day at the embassy, his frustration would bleed through the bond and upset Zareth and the children. "You need to learn mental discipline," Zareth told him after a particularly bad day had left the whole family on edge. Catalian mates learn to control what they share and what they keep private. Jake began practicing meditation techniques, learning to compartmentalize his emotions so that his work problems didn't overwhelm his family life. It was harder than anything he had ever done, but gradually he began to master the skill. 3 weeks after the bonding ceremony, Jake realized that something fundamental had changed in how he saw himself. He no longer thought of Zareth and the children as people he was helping. They had become his family in every sense that mattered. When Kira had nightmares, he was the one who went to comfort her. When Knox broke something, he felt the same parental mixture of frustration and love that any father would feel. When Tam asked difficult questions, Jake felt pride in the boy's intelligence. One evening, as they sat together watching an old Earth movie, Tam climbed into Jake's lap and fell asleep. Kira curled up against his side, while Knox leaned against Zareth on the other end of the couch. Jake felt a deep contentment settle over him. "This feels right," he said to Zareth through their mental connection. "Yes," she replied the same way. "It does." But their peaceful domestic life was about to be disrupted. The next morning, Jake received a message at work that made his blood run cold. Captain Yang wanted to see him immediately, and she wasn't alone. There were officials from Earth Command with her, and they had questions about his recent activities. Jake looked at the message and felt a spike of fear that immediately transmitted through the bond to Zareth. She sent back a wave of calm strength, reminding him that they were no longer facing their problems alone. As he walked to Captain Yang's office, Jake realized that the easy part was over. They had formed their family and learned to live together. Now they would have to fight to keep it. The children were at school. Zareth was at the apartment, and Jake was about to face the first real test of their new life together. Through their bond, he felt Zareth's quiet confidence in him. Her belief that he would find a way to protect their family. Jake straightened his shoulders and knocked on Captain Yang's door. Whatever happened next, he would face it as a husband and father, not as a single diplomat. The bonding had changed more than just his legal status. It had changed who he was at his core. "Come in," Captain Yang called. Jake opened the door and stepped into the room, carrying with him the strength of his new family and the determination to protect them at any cost. Elder Vexahan arrived on New Geneva the next morning. Jake had expected an ancient, wise figure, but the Catalian elder was surprisingly young-looking, with the same crystalline skin as Zareth, but marked with intricate silver patterns that seemed to shift and move in the light. "Mr. Morrison," Vexahan said, his voice carrying the same musical quality as all Catalians. I understand you wish to learn about our bonding ceremonies. They met in a private room at the embassy. Zareth sat quietly in the corner while Vexahan explained the process to Jake. The ceremony itself was complex, involving ancient words, specific rituals, and the exchange of biological markers that would create the permanent bond. You must understand, Vexahan said, this is not like human marriage. You cannot divorce. You cannot change your mind later. Once bonded, you and Zareth will be connected until one of you dies. What exactly will I feel? Jake asked. At first, everything. Her emotions will seem like your own. Her thoughts will whisper at the edges of your mind. Her physical sensations will echo in your body. It can be overwhelming. And later, you will learn to separate your feelings from hers, but the connection will always be there. You will know when she is sad, when she is happy, when she is afraid. She will know the same about you. Jake looked at Zareth. She was watching him with those golden eyes, her expression unreadable. What about the children? They will accept. You as their father immediately, Vexahan said. The bond will extend to them through their mother. They will feel your love for Zareth and understand that you are now part of their family. Is there any way to test this first? To see if it will work? Vexahan shook his head. The bonding ceremony is absolute. There are no partial bonds, no trial periods. You must commit completely or not at all. Jake spent the rest of the day thinking. He walked through the streets of New Geneva, observing the mixed population of humans and aliens who had somehow found ways to coexist. He saw interspecies couples holding hands, alien children playing with human ones, and families that looked nothing like the traditional Earth model but seemed happy nonetheless. That evening, he made his decision. The ceremony was scheduled for the following night. Vexahan explained that it had to be done in secret, away from government officials who might try to stop it. They chose a small garden behind the Catalian Cultural Center, a place that was technically neutral ground. Jake spent the day preparing. He wrote letters to his family on Earth, explaining his decision in terms they might understand. He updated his will and his emergency contacts. He also spent time with the children, who seemed to sense that something important was about to happen. Are you scared? Kira asked him as they sat by the fountain in the park. Yes, Jake admitted. But sometimes being scared means you're about to do something important. Mother is scared too, Knox said. But she's also happy. I can feel both emotions from her. She's been alone for so long, Tam added. She tried to hide it, but we knew. As evening approached, Jake found himself at the garden with Zareth, Vexon, and the 3 children. The space was beautiful, filled with plants from both Earth and Katalos, creating a unique blend of colors and scents. Before we begin, Vexohan said, I must ask you both one final time. Are you certain this is what you want? Jake looked at Zareth, then at the children standing nearby. Kira was holding Knox's hand, while Tam clung to his mother's leg. They all looked hopeful and terrified at the same time. Yes, Jake said. Yes, Zareth whispered. The ceremony began with Vexon speaking in the ancient Catalian language. The words were beautiful, flowing like music through the garden. He explained that Jake and Zareth would need to drink a special tea made from Catalian herbs, then place their hands together while specific words were spoken. This tea will prepare your bodies for the bonding, Vexahan explained. It will make you more sensitive to each other's biological signals. Jake drank the tea without hesitation. It tasted like flowers and starlight, if starlight had a flavor. Almost immediately, he felt a tingling sensation throughout his body. His senses became sharper, and he could smell Zareth's natural scent. More clearly, something like vanilla and rain. Zareth drank her portion of the tea, and Jake saw her shiver slightly. When she looked at him, her pupils dilated, and he realized she was experiencing the same heightened awareness he was. Now, Vexen said, place your hands together, palm to palm. Jake reached out, and when his skin touched Zarth, he gasped. The contact sent a shock through his entire system. He could feel her pulse as clearly as his own, and for a moment, he wasn't sure where he ended, and she began. Vex'ahhan continued the ceremony, speaking words about unity, commitment, and the joining of two souls. Jake tried to focus on the words, but he was becoming overwhelmed by the sensations flooding through him. He could feel Zarth's nervousness, her hope, her determination to do right by her children. Then something shifted. The feeling stopped being foreign and started becoming familiar. Jake found himself understanding not just what Zareth was feeling, but why she was feeling it. He sensed her memories of Alex, her grief at losing him, her fear for her children's future, and her cautious hope that Jake might be the answer to her prayers. The bonding is taking hold, Vex'ahhan said softly. Do not fight it. Let it flow through you. Jake closed his eyes and let the connection deepen. He felt Zareth's surprise as she began to experience his emotions in return. She sensed his genuine care for her children, his desire to protect them, and his growing affection for her. She also felt his fear, not of the bonding itself, but of failing them, of not being the father and partner they needed. The ceremony continued for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Jake became aware of the children watching, their own empathic abilities, allowing them to sense the changes happening between their mother and this human who was becoming their new father. Finally, Vex'ahhan spoke the final words of the ceremony. By the ancient laws of our people, you are now bonded. What joins you cannot be separated. What you share cannot be taken away. You are one family, one heart, one future. Jake opened his eyes and looked at Zareth. She was crying, but he could feel through their new connection that these were tears of relief and joy, not sadness. He was surprised to realize that he was crying too. How do you feel? Vex'ahhan asked. Jake took a moment to assess himself. The overwhelming flood of sensations had settled into something manageable. He was still aware of Zareth's emotions, but they felt like background music rather than a loud noise. Different, he said finally. But good different. And you, Zareth? Complete, she said simply. For the first time since Alex died, I feel complete. The children approached cautiously. Kira was the first to reach them, and when she looked at Jake, her expression changed completely. You're really our father now, she said, wondering her voice. I can feel it. Knox came next, and to Jake's surprise, the boy threw his arms around his waist. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for saving us. Tam was the last to approach. He studied Jake with those intelligent eyes, then nodded as if he had made a decision. Will you read to us before bed? He asked. Jake laughed, feeling lighter than he had in years. Every night, if you want me to. As they walked back toward the temporary housing district, Jake marveled at how natural it felt to have Zareth's hand in his. The connection between them was still new and strange, but it was also comforting. He could sense her contentment, her gratitude, and underneath it all, the beginning of something that might eventually become love. The children walked ahead of them, chattering excitedly about their new family. Jake realized that in the space of a few hours, his entire life had changed. He was no longer just Jake Morrison, diplomat. He was now a husband, a father, and a member of an interspecies family that shouldn't exist according to the laws of either world. But as they reached the apartment building and the children ran ahead to open the door, Jake felt a deep satisfaction. He had made the right choice. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever bureaucratic nightmares they would have to face, whatever cultural barriers they would need to overcome, they would face them together. Are you having second thoughts? Zareth asked quietly, sensing his contemplation through their bond. No, Jake said, and he meant it. I'm thinking about how to explain this to my commanding officer. Zareth laughed, a sound like silver bells. That will be an interesting conversation. Jake squeezed her hand. The first of many, I suspect. As they entered the apartment that was now their home, Jake realized that his old life was truly over. But his new life, complicated, uncertain, and unlike anything he had ever imagined, was just beginning. Jake spent the rest of the day unable to concentrate on his work. Every time he tried to focus on the reports spread across his desk, his mind wandered back to Zareth and her children. The image of little Tam saying his mother cried at night kept replaying in his head dot by evening. Jake knew he needed help understanding what he was dealing with. He made his way to the embassy's medical wing where Dr. Ben Carter was finishing up his shift. Ben was the closest thing New Geneva had to an expert on alien psychology and interspecies relationships. "Jake," Ben said, looking up from his computer, "you look like someone who's seen a ghost. What's wrong?" Jake sat down heavily in the chair across from Ben's desk. "I need to ask you about Catalian bonding ceremonies." Ben's eyebrows shot up. "That's not a topic that comes up often. Why the sudden interest?" Jake told him about Zartha's visit, her children, and the proposal she had made. Ben listened without interrupting, his expression growing more serious with each detail. "Jake," Ben said when the story was finished, "do you understand what you're considering? That's why I'm here. I need to know exactly what a Catalian bonding ceremony involves." Ben turned to his computer and pulled up several files. The Catalians are one of the few species that form permanent pair bonds. When they mate, it's for life. The bonding ceremony isn't just symbolic, it's biological. What do you mean? The Catalians release specific pheromones during the ceremony that create a permanent chemical connection between partners. Once bonded, they can sense each other's emotions, share some thoughts, and even feel physical sensations across distances. Jake felt his stomach tighten. And this works for humans? There have been only 3 recorded cases of human Catalian bonding. All 3 were successful, but the humans reported significant changes in their brain chemistry afterward. Enhanced empathy, deeper emotional connections, and in one case, the ability to sense his partner's location even when they were apart. Any negative effects? The subjects reported that the connection was so strong it was overwhelming at first. It took months to learn how to manage the shared emotions. Also, the bond appears to be completely irreversible. Once it's done, it's done. Jake leaned back in his chair. What about the children? How does the bonding affect them? Catalian children are naturally empathic. They can sense their parents' emotional states. If you bond with Zarth, they would likely sense you as a parental figure almost immediately. The connection would be automatic. And if I don't do it? Ben's expression grew sad. From what you've told me, they'll be sent back to Katalos. Hybrid children don't fare well there. The Catalians have strong beliefs about genetic purity. At best, the children will be social outcasts. At worst, ... He shrugged. Jake spent the next hour asking Ben every question he could think of about Catalian culture, biology, and psychology. When he finally left the medical wing, his head was spinning with information, but he wasn't any closer to making a decision. The next morning brought a new complication. Captain Lisa Yang, Jake's commanding officer, called him into her office before he had even finished his first cup of coffee. "Jake, I need to ask you about something," Lisa said, gesturing for him to sit down. "I've been hearing rumors about a situation involving you and a Catalian woman." Jake's heart sank. "Rumors?" New Geneva is a small community. Word gets around fast. Is it true that you're considering some kind of bonding ceremony? "I'm considering helping a family in need," Jake said carefully. "By marrying an alien woman you met yesterday?" "It's more complicated than that." Lisa leaned forward. "Jake, I need you to think about this from a diplomatic perspective. You're a representative of Earth. Your actions reflect on all of us. If you go through with this ceremony, it will be news across the galaxy. The first human diplomat to undergo permanent alien bonding. Is that necessarily bad? It could be. Some people back on Earth are already nervous about how close humans are getting to alien species. This kind of thing could be seen as going too far." Jake thought about the children playing in the park, about Zarth's desperate hope. What if it's the right thing to do? That's what I'm trying to figure out, Lisa said. I'm not forbidding you from doing this, Jake. I can't. But I need you to be absolutely sure you understand the consequences. After leaving Lisa's office, Jake decided he needed to see the children again. He found them in the same park, but this time they were alone. Zareth was nowhere to be seen. "Where's your mother?" Jake asked Kira. "She's at the housing office, trying to get more time," Kira said. "They want to send us away next week." "Next week?" Jake felt a chill. "I thought you had a month." "They changed their minds," Knox said bitterly. "They said too many people are complaining about us being here." Jake sat down on a bench near the fountain. "What do you think about your mother's proposal?" Kira looked at him with those unsettling golden eyes. "You mean about the bonding ceremony? You know about that?" "We know everything," Tam said. "Mother doesn't keep secrets from us. Are you scared?" Jake asked. "Of course we're scared," Knox said. "But not of you. We're scared of going back to Katalos. We're scared of what will happen to us there." "Mother says you're different from other humans," Kira said. "She says you understand that families don't have to look the same to be real." Jake spent the next hour talking with the children. He learned that Kira had inherited her mother's empathic abilities, but struggled to control them. Sometimes she would burst into tears for no apparent reason, overwhelmed by the emotions of people around her. Knox was strong, much stronger than a human child his age, but he was learning to be gentle. Tam was incredibly smart, often solving problems that confused children twice his age. "Do you remember your father?" Jake asked. "A little," Kira said. "He was kind. He used to read to us before bed. He taught Knox how to play catch with a softball so he wouldn't break anything. He promised to take us to Earth someday," Knox added. "He said we would like it there. He died before he could keep that promise," Tam said matter-of-factly. "Now we need someone else to help us." That evening, Jake found himself walking through the temporary housing district. The buildings were basic but clean, designed to house people who were between homes. He found Zareth's unit and knocked on the door. "Mr. Morrison," she said, opening the door. "I wasn't expecting you." "I wanted to talk to you again." Away from the children, she invited him in. The apartment was small but tidy. Jake could see touches that made it home. Drawings the children had made taped to the walls, a few books in Bohemian and Catalian languages, and a small shrine with a picture of a smiling human man who must have been Alex. "Tell me about him," Jake said, nodding toward the picture. Zareth's expression softened. "Alex was ... warm. That's the best word for him. He made everyone around him feel safe. He didn't care that I was different. He said love was about souls, not bodies." "How did you meet?" "He was working on a transport ship that came to Katalos. I was a translator for the trade negotiations. He kept asking me questions about our culture, but not the usual ones. He wanted to know about our art, our music, our stories. Most humans only cared about our technology or our resources. And you fell in love. Eventually. It took time. Catalians don't fall in love quickly, but Alex was patient. He came back to Katalos 6 times before I agreed to leave with him." "Do you regret it?" "Never. Even knowing how it ended, I would make the same choice. Alex gave me the most precious things in my life, our children." Jake looked around the small apartment. "Zareth, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest." "Of course. Are you asking me to bond with you because you love me, or because you need me?" Zareth was quiet for a long moment. "I need you," she said finally. "I won't lie about that, but I sense something in you. A kindness that reminds me of Alex. A willingness to put others before yourself. I think, given time, we could care for each other deeply. And if we can't, then we would still be partners in raising the children. That would be enough." Jake left the apartment with his head spinning. He had one more day to make his decision, and he was no closer to knowing what to do than when he started. That night, he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, weighing everything he had learned. On one side was his life as he knew it, his career, his independence, his future plans. On the other side was a family that needed him, a woman who was asking him to trust her with his entire future, and 3 children who might have no future at all without his help. By morning, Jake realized that the decision wasn't really about him at all. It was about what kind of person he wanted to be. He thought about Alex, who had been willing to love across species lines. He thought about Zareth, who had left her entire world behind for love. He thought about the children, who had already lost one father and were about to lose their home. Jake got dressed, ate breakfast, and walked to his office. But instead of sitting down at his desk, he picked up his communication device and called Zareth. "I've made my decision," he said when she answered. "And? I'd like to meet with Elder Vexahan. I want to learn more about the bonding ceremony." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then very softly, Zareth said, "Thank you." Jake ended the call and sat down at his desk. He had crossed the line, and there was no going back. Whatever happened next, his life would never be the same. Jake Morrison sat at his desk in the human embassy, sorting through the endless pile of paperwork that came with being a diplomat on New Geneva. The frontier world was a melting pot of different alien species, all trying to coexist in the same space. Most days, his job involved settling disputes between traders, helping lost tourists find their way home, and making sure everyone followed the basic rules of peaceful interaction. The morning had been unusually quiet. Jake had managed to finish 3 reports and was starting on a 4th when his assistant knocked on the door. "Sir, there's someone here to see you." "She says it's urgent." Jake looked up from his papers. "Did she make an appointment?" "No, sir. She just showed up about an hour ago. She's been waiting in the lobby. She looks desperate." Jake sighed. Walk-ins were common on New Geneva, but they usually meant trouble. Still, it was his job to help whoever needed it. "Send her in." The door opened, and Jake's breath caught in his throat. The woman who entered was unlike anyone he had ever seen. She was tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to shimmer like crystal in the office light. Her eyes were large and golden, with pupils that changed shape depending on how she looked at him. Her hair was silver white and moved like water around her shoulders. She wore simple clothes, but Jake could see the fine bone structure and elegant movements that marked her as Catalian. "Mr. Morrison?" Her voice was soft, with a musical quality that made his name sound like a song. "I am Zareth. I need your help." Jake stood up and gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Please sit down. What can I do for you?" Zareth sat carefully, her hands folded in her lap. Jake noticed they were shaking slightly. "I have heard that you are kind to people like me, people who are not human." "I try to help everyone who comes to me," Jake said. "What's your situation?" "My husband died 6 months ago," Zareth said, her voice breaking slightly. "He was human." His name was Alex. He worked in the mining station on the Outer Rim. Jake felt a pang of sympathy. Mining accidents were common on the frontier worlds, and they usually ended badly. "I'm sorry for your loss. Was he registered with the embassy?" "No," Zareth said, shaking her head. "He said he would do it later." He always said later. Now there is no later. Jake pulled out a datapad and started making notes. "What kind of help do you need? Are you looking for death benefits? Insurance claims?" "No," Zareth said. "I need help with my children." Jake looked. Children?" "3 of them. Kira is 8, Knox is 6, and Tam is 4. They are half human, half Catalian. My people will not accept them because they are not pure Catalian. Your people will not accept them because Alex never filed the proper papers." Jake set down his datapad. This was more complicated than he had expected. "Where are the children?" "Now? They are with me in the temporary housing district. We have been there for 3 months. They will only let us stay for 1 more month, then we must leave." "And go where?" "Back to the Catalian homeworld. But my people—" "They will not. Be kind to hybrid children. They will be outcasts, maybe worse. Jake had heard stories about how some alien species treated mixed-race children. The Catalians were generally peaceful, but they had strong beliefs about bloodline purity. What about relatives? Do you have family who might help? My family rejected me when I married Alex. They said I was betraying our people. His family lives on Earth, but they do not know about us. Alex wanted to tell them, but he never found the right time. The office fell silent. Jake looked at Zareth, really looked at her. He could see the desperation in her golden eyes, the way she held herself like someone who had carried too much weight for too long. What exactly are you asking me to do? Zareth took a deep breath. In my culture, when a woman loses her mate, she can choose a new one to help raise her children. But it must be someone who will commit fully. Someone who will become a true father to them. Jake felt his stomach tighten. And you want me to? I want you to consider it, Zareth said quickly. I know it sounds impossible. I know we barely know each other. But I have watched you, Mr. Morrison. I have seen how you treat people who come to you for help. You are kind. You are patient. You understand that not everyone fits into the same boxes. Jake stood up and walked to the window. The view showed the busy streets of New Geneva, filled with humans and aliens going about their daily lives. Zareth H., what you're describing, it sounds like marriage. In a way, yes, but it is more than that. It is a bonding ceremony. Once completed, we will be connected in ways that your people do not understand. It would change both of us. Change? How? There would be a link between us. We would share emotions, thoughts, some physical sensations. It cannot be undone once it is done. Jake turned back to face her. And if I don't agree, then my children and I will be sent back to Katalos. And they will spend their lives as outcasts, never fully accepted by either species. Jake sat back down heavily. This is not a decision I can make quickly. I understand, Zareth said. But I hope you will think about it. Would you like to meet them? The children? Jake hesitated. Meeting the children would make this personal, and he wasn't sure he was ready for that. But he also knew he couldn't make an informed decision without understanding the full situation. Yes, I think I should meet them. They are in the park near the temporary housing. I can take you there now if you wish. Jake looked at his paperwork, then at Zareth. The reports could wait. Let's go. The walk to the park took 15 minutes. Zareth H. moved with quiet grace, nodding politely to the people they passed. Jake noticed how some humans stared at her, curious about her alien features. He also noticed how some Catalians they encountered seemed to avoid looking at her directly. The park was small but well-maintained, with trees from several different worlds, creating a patchwork of colors and shapes. Jake spotted the children immediately. They were playing together near a fountain, their mixed heritage obvious even from a distance. Kira, Zareth called softly. Come here, please. Bring your brothers. The oldest child, a girl with silver hair and human-like features, but golden eyes, looked up. When she saw her mother with a stranger, her expression became guarded. She said something to the two boys, who immediately moved closer to her dot as they approached. Jake could see the unique blend of characteristics each child had inherited. Kira had her mother's coloring but more human proportions. Knox, the middle child, looked almost entirely human, except for his eyes and the subtle shimmer to his skin. Tam, the youngest, had kept more of his mother's alien features, but with a human child's energy and curiosity. Children, Zareth said gently, this is Mr. Morrison. He works at the human embassy. He might be able to help us. Kira studied Jake with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. You're the one who helps people, she said. It wasn't a question. I try to, Jake said. Our mother cries at night, Knox said suddenly. She thinks we don't know, but we do. She's scared, Tam added, his young voice matter-of-fact. She doesn't want us to go back to Katalos. Jake knelt down to be at their eye level. What do you want? We want to stay together, Kira said. We want to stay here. This is the only home we remember. And we want our mother to stop crying, Knox added. Jake looked at the three children, then at Zareth. He could see the love between them, the way they protected each other, the quiet desperation underneath their hope. These weren't just statistics or policy problems. They were a family trying to survive in a universe that didn't seem to have a place for them. I need some time to think about this, Jake said finally. How much time? Kira asked. I don't know yet, Jake admitted. Time is something we don't have very much of, Zareth said quietly. Jake stood up, his mind racing. I understand. Give me 3 days. I'll have an answer for you then. As he walked back to the embassy alone, Jake couldn't shake the image of those 3 children and their mother. He had handled hundreds of cases during his time on New Geneva, but none had ever asked him to fundamentally change his life. The question wasn't just whether he could help them. The question was whether he was brave enough to try.